why don't we just go down the order unless there's anything else on that last stint?
No, that's it. So, yeah, McLaughlin with the big win. Surprised me by doing it on 3 stops, making 3 stops work like that. I think once we got into the race, I wasn't surprised, but surprised to see him and the rest of the Penske's go to 3 stops so early. And then, they made it work.
So before the race, I was looking again at odds. They move the odds around after qualifying and stuff like that, and I just wanted a Penske.
Yeah.
I picked the wrong one. I picked Newgarden was 11-1, but McLaughlin was 7-1, and starting out pretty close to the front. But those 2 guys again pretty much dominated the race, just like they did at St. Pete, and so phenomenal race by McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Same thing for Grosjean. I don't know what you can say. The guy did pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Just couldn't win.
No, it's tough. I don't think anybody was, it's tough to see him finish second again after all that. But again, he did bring it home, and I think he's only 15 points back in the championship standings now or something. So, the results could wind up paying off in the end. And man, it's just got to be tough to knock on the door pretty much every race, knock on the door of the win and not get it again, especially having taken the lead, in that dramatic fight with McLaughlin after the final stop.
Yeah, I would say check the pre-race odds before the Indy Grand Prix. If they're anywhere, above around 10 or whatever, for some reason, jump on it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Will Power had an incredible race, right? Almost. I forget where he started. Let's look. He started 11th and was pretty quiet for the first half of the race. Really, I didn't even really consider him until he came out of the pits at the end in 3rd. I was like, holy shit, how'd that happen?
Yeah, because even before that, he had restarted after the yellow in 9th, and I think he was only up to 8th by the time the stop started. And so, yeah, I didn't think he was going to be as fast as he turned out to be, but this is an awesome race for him. It's really well done. O'Ward and Palou both do 2 stops, come home 4th and 5th. So I should say my betting strategy actually, historically this race is usually won from people starting in the top 3. I think in the last 5 years, 4 of them have been won by people starting in the top 3. The only exception of that was Newgarden in 2017, who I'm pretty sure actually won from 7th on 3 stops as well, kind of like McLaughlin did today. But I thought it was going to be Grosjean, O'Ward, and Palou, so I did an even amount of money on each of them, hoping one of them would win and I'd take home some haul. And so I was a little surprised to see him not be able to hang around and get beat out by the 3 stoppers, but I think it was exactly that. I think the 3 stoppers made the better strategy play at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then not too far behind him, I forget what the gaps are. I guess I could find that. But it's Palou, right? Palou ends up in 5th.
Yep.
Also a 2-stopper. 6th, Lundgaard. Excellent race.
Phenomenal race. Yeah. Phenomenal, especially if you consider that his teammates finished Harvey 24th and Rahal 17th. So he's carrying the flag for Rahal Letterman. So out of the 2 stoppers, right? If you take away the Penske's that were both 3 stoppers, you have Grosjean and an Andretti, O'Ward in a McLaren, Palou in a Ganassi, and then Lundgaard in a Rahal Letterman Lanigan. So 4 different teams there representing the top 4 finishers of the 2-stop guys, whatever. Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. So, and again, given the history this year of RLL, that's a pretty unbelievable finish.
Yeah, so he is another, and we know how strong he is at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course too, which is where we're headed next. I'm going to hold short of making any predictions, but he's carrying a lot of momentum into that race.
That's a good call. I'll be watching for that. Dixon is next, also on a 2-stopper.
Yep. Loses 2 spots in the end, but I think that's just, that's the nature of having a fuel save for most of the race. But Rossi in 8th comes home, having done 3 stops.
Yeah, he had looked a little stronger earlier in the race. We talked about him restarting after that yellow on black tires and losing a couple spots, but not bad. Right behind him is his teammate Rosenquist, who looped it on lap 1, made a strong comeback.
Yeah, I would say actually this turned out to be a really strong race for him. To come all the way back up to ninth after being backwards and dead last on lap 1 with no help from a yellow to catch you up. I'm talking about lap 1. It's pretty impressive. He got going right away after that spin. He passed 6 guys in the first 10 laps and then went to 3 stops and just continued moving up from there. So I think this is a really strong race for him.
Ericsson in 10th.
Yep, another 2-stopper. Kind of used to seeing Ericsson right at the front, so to see him just kind of hanging around the back of the top 10, even outside the top 10 for most of the day, is a little bit of a surprise. But that's 3 spots ahead of where he started, and he still got the championship lead.
Marcus Armstrong in 11th on a 2-stopper. Closed it out on red tires. He did 2 stints on the reds. But yeah, after starting all the way back in 26th, that's a pretty big move.
Yeah, and he was actually dead last. So when Rosenquist was dead last on lap 1, Armstrong was dead last on lap 2. And he was up to 15th when the 3 stoppers came in, restarted in 13th, and then stayed right there and actually moved up a couple spots to get home to 11th. So that's a strong race for him.
Kirkwood in 12th, probably disappointing. Definitely after getting that huge win at Long Beach, probably has his sights set toward the front of the field. Probably did before the win, but expects to be a little higher up than that.
Yeah.
But just didn't really go his way. Ends up in 12th. It's just shows you how competitive it is.
Yeah, but then we get to 13th, which is Ilott, who we already talked about, had just the mega final stint. I don't know if we need to recap that. We've already gotten into it.
No, I think we said enough the first time around, but he had kind of a modified 3-stopper, right? He was going to go on a 2-stop strategy. When the yellow came out, he switched it up, and it paid off for him at the end. Everybody else was in major fuel save, and Ilott just ripped through the pack.
Yeah, that was a great call by the team. Herta 14th. That's actually exactly where he started the race on 2 stops, but I would say just from watching on TV, he was most visibly struggling with tire degradation. I think a lot of guys were, but it just seemed like they were on his in-car quite a lot when he was slipping around trying to hang on to it at the end of the stint. So that's pretty up and down for him, but he winds up coming home at exactly where he started.
Yeah, I was listening to his in-car on the first stint when his tires started to go off, and they debated. I think they might have played it on TV too. They debated switching to a 3-stopper, right? I think they just should have done it. Hindsight's 20/20, but it seemed I was surprised he didn't. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm surprised a couple other guys didn't also. And I think they paid for it.
Yeah.
Newgarden, we've talked about Newgarden. At what position is that?
That's 15th. And yeah, like you said, at one point it looked like he was maybe going to be a contender to win. So it's kind of a shock to get to the final stint and just see him stuck all the way back there. But we've talked pretty in depth about what happened to him throughout the race.
If he did have suspension alignment issues like he probably did, it's sort of amazing he was able to run as well as he did for to be a contender, because something was definitely wrong.
Well, I was just thinking about that. He winds up in 15th place, but the fact that he looked like a potential winner early in the race, the guy's obviously just really good at putting himself in position to win these things. The damage ultimately cost him, but he probably got everything he could out of it, all things considered.
So VK back right behind him on a 2-stopper.
Yeah, I think he's got to be really disappointed because he qualified up in the top 12 and looked really fast at the beginning of the weekend, but it just seemed like at the end of this, kind of like Herta, at the end of these stints, he started to slip backwards with heavy tire wear, and so actually at the end of I think the first stint, he made his first stop with Newgarden having already gotten past him, and came out in 20th. You know, from being like 5th, about 10 laps into the race or something. So that's pretty tough race for him.
He beats out Ray Hall. Ray Hall's on Ray Hall was on a 3-stopper.
Yep.
And that is 16th, correct?
17th is what I have.
17th, okay. Pagano in 18th on a 2-stopper. Malukas, you mentioned him dicing it up with Grosjean. He did that a couple times, actually. On the final stops, he came right up on McLaughlin and Grosjean as they were doing their battle.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, ran well, but just tough all the way back in 19th.
Yeah, yep, definitely. Ferrucci we barely got to see on TV, but he does 3 stops, finishes 20th. He started 27th, so he did move up quite a bit, but I don't really have a lot to say about him.
Yeah, he had issues in qualifying, couldn't get the car into gear, so basically didn't post a time, had to start dead last. But yeah, I was looking for him too. Barely saw him, but all things considered, not terrible.
Yeah. Castroneves comes home 21st. He stuck to 2 stops throughout. Couple off-track excursions for him.
Yeah, it was pretty. He went off to the right side on turn 1 and pulled it off. So, pretty eventful race back there. Those guys must have been chopping each other up all day. We just didn't get to see it on TV.
Yeah, it really looked like they did. There's a lot of position change at the very back of this pack. I think they were racing each other really hard. But speaking of that, so Ben Peterson comes home in 22nd. He was on 3 stops, but I think he restarted dead last or second to last, and he moved up a little bit. He was making some ground at the end of this thing. So, we haven't, he's been at the back, so we haven't got to see a whole lot of him, but I think that probably consider that to be a pretty successful race.
Yeah, he must be getting comfortable in the car. Devin DeFrancesco just, qualified well, had a pretty good opening stint. It was hard to tell because he was on the Reds to start. And, but yeah, just couldn't get it, I don't know, it's all the way back in 23rd.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think he had a pretty good opening lap start too, because he's shown in 14th on the lap chart at the end of lap 1, and he started 18th, so
there you go, yeah.
Plus 4 spots. But yeah, winds up all the way back in 23rd. It's a tough day.
Yeah, I mean, he was on a 2-stopper also, so, it's a fine line. I mean, and again, all these guys are on the lead lap, right? So they're all the 2-stop guys are saving fuel. I mean, they're not that far out of the lead.
I was definitely, yeah, that's a good point. I was surprised to see that when I looked at the results at the end of this thing, that nobody finished a lap down. Everybody was still on the lead lap when it was all said and done.
Yeah, no wave arounds, no nothing like that. So, it's not like these guys were slow.
Right.
It's just tough.
No, and by the looks of it, they were fighting each other really hard back there. But so then we get to Harvey in 24th, kind of, also on 2 stops. Just hasn't really had the speed since he's gone to, Ray Hall, to the Ray Hall team. It's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, he has in the past though shown really well at the Indy road course. So with Lundgaard putting a good race together, I'm sure they're aiming a little higher.
Yeah,
but it's getting to be desperation time, really.
Yeah, and Daly's in a very similar boat. He finishes all the way back in 25th on 3 stops. Didn't see a whole lot of him in this race. I think he just didn't have a lot of pace, but he's another guy that tends to go really well at Indy on both the road course and the oval. So
yeah, I think both he and Harvey have had front row starts on the road course in the last 4 or 5 years. So and you're right about the oval too. I mean, Daly leads laps to 500, so he's probably, it's been rough up till now, but he's probably chomping at the bit to get to the Speedway.
I'm sure he is. And then we get Augustine Canapino back in 26th. I think I don't have a lot to say about him. I think maybe this just kind of comes back down to earth a little bit, because in the first few races of the year. He's really exceeded expectations. And yeah, I mean, eventually you're going to have the bad days too.
Again, on the lead lap, completed every lap. He's only been this is his fourth IndyCar race, fourth open wheel race.
Yeah.
So, probably frustrating to be at the back like that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Chalk it up to another learning experience.
Yep, and then 27th Stingray Rob, who unfortunately DNFs.
Okay, so that wraps it up. Should we do points real quick?
Yeah, either way. Probably should take a quick look.